History and legend go hand in hand. When we don't have an answer for something, like a date or a name to jot down, we instead create a legend. We need some way to explain the things we see, or the reason why something exists. Therefore, years of cultural influence and stories pass down from generation to generation. They can develop into their own history. It may not be fact, but maybe it can make an interesting story, or provide some kind of moral, or maybe even build a religious faith. I know I'm being cryptic here, but I just find it fascinating. Thanks to the internet making the world a smaller place, legends and mysteries occur a bit less frequently now. We can just look things up, read articles that we never had access to before, look at sources of materials. So I get excited when I come across something that still has a mysterious origin. So rarely do we get the opportunity to meet something tangible, but shrouded in controversy over its existence. I had the pleasure of experiencing it firsthand in Putnam County and seeing the stone chambers of Kent, New York. I had no idea what world of genuine debate I was stepping into when I first set eyes on it, and how many more questions have been raised since I first started reading about it. Welcome to Hudson Valley Legends. Kent is your typical upstate New York town. It's so small it doesn't even have its own post office. You've got the usual suspects in there. Bored kids, plazas, a gas station thrown here or there, but peaceful neighborhoods built into steep hills and roads long since repaired. It's not a dying town, but rather a quiet one that just wants to be left alone. Behind all of this is a forest only a few miles wide and mostly typical, but inside are strange artifacts of another culture. It's just which culture is what's up for debate. When I started my little hike into the woods, waiting to see what one of these historic chambers looked like, I was pretty excited to even just witness one. See, these chambers are actually all over Putnam County. They're stated to be home to almost 200 of them, although many have crumbled with age or have been bulldozed over to make way for land development. They speckle the entire map of the Northeast, but Putnam is home to a majority of them, which makes it all the more interesting. I was expecting to see nothing but some scattered stones and the remnants of whatever this chamber was supposed to be. However, as I walked down the dirt path and kept on the lookout for trail markers, something just sort of popped up in my vision on the right. I turned my head and I saw a beautiful stone structure with this rectangular opening, and it was built into the side of a green, lush hill. Stone slabs were tightly placed, and I can only describe it as some sort of primitive hobbit hole. It seemed strangely out of place amongst the thick brush and heavy branches that filled in the sky above me. I stepped off the trail and trekked through overgrown grass to go have a closer look at this mysterious structure that, from this point on, I'm going to refer to as the chamber. To give you a bit of introductory note, the chamber I visited specifically was on Mead Farm, known for its exemplary structure and size. It's intact and quite beautiful to behold. It looks almost hospitable. It was built in, well, that's the thing. We don't know when it was built. There's much speculation over when all these chambers were built, and more importantly, by whom. Many theories are out there, and frankly, they all hold just as much water as the next, because there's hardly any written documentation about them. What we do know is this. These chambers are rectangular, four-walled stone structures, varying in size and length. They're all built into the side of a hill, and they all face east. The walls and ceilings are long slabs of rock, fit together and overlap to create curved-in walls, arching at the ceiling to allow for smaller capstones to cover it. The floors are either dirt or flat stones, and the back wall of the chamber, the part innermost to the hill it was built into, is all bedrock. This was all done without mortar, by the way, so the fact that they're still standing and they're in great shape is an absolute thrill. But I still haven't answered the question for you yet. Why are they here, and what are they used for? That's going to be tough to answer. There's a lot of controversy regarding these structures, so I'm going to do the best I can to describe both sides of the debate. I'll start with the easiest explanation first. The scholarly theory about these chambers is that they're not chambers at all. They're just root cellars. Kent was prominently farming area, so it's believed that in the late 1700s, these chambers were built as just sort of refrigeration units. The reason that they're all facing east is because the rising sun would provide light to the doorways and give the farmers ample vision in the morning. They housed roots, vegetables, or meats because they maintained a cool, non-humid closure. When I visited, I stepped inside the chamber, and it's true. It was about 90 degrees and terribly humid out during my hike. I went inside, and not only did the humidity drop, but it felt an easy 15 degrees cooler. I'm treading on some sensitive issues here, but I do feel it's important to note that any article I've read prior to 2000 seems to be almost unaware of any other theory regarding these cellars. They all mention what kind of roots would have been stowed, how the doors all have lintels and apparent markings for door frames, and how it seems very commonplace to have one of these cellars on your farm to store goods in. I'm sparing you the details because, frankly, it's a bit boring, but I'm just furthering the point that prior to a more social, open acceptance to spiritual or paranormal suggestion, these articles all tend to be simply factual in nature and do not seem to have any room for another opinion other than this thing stored food. The other side of the debate is a bit more complex to explain and branches out pretty far. There's a lot of spiritual interest in these chambers regarding their placement, structure, and use. Some believe they were built by the Native Americans local to the area. I've read that the Wappinger Indians could have used them as winter forts or burial chambers when ground was too cold to break. Another theory is that these chambers are actually of Celt origin, as a ceremonial sacred spot to celebrate the equinox. This is based in that all the chambers face east and align with the equator. When I went to visit, I noticed a burnt-down candle in the middle of the floor. Although I didn't visit quite at the right time for celebration, I like to think I was a few hours away from some sort of awesome pagan debauchery. A lot of the questions these latter beliefs raise are in fact very good ones. The structures themselves seem archaic, and they're not in prime farming area, as obvious from the bedrock and silt. Why would a farmer go so far off into his land to simply build a storage unit? Why is there so little documentation written on them? And why are people having spiritual visions and enlightenment when they visit? I wanted to get a better understanding as to the magnitude of these chambers, so I spoke with Rene Flurry, the founder of Celtic Energy Paranormal Research and Investigation, or more commonly known as KEPRI. I have to be honest, I went into this interview a little unsure of what I was going to return with. Sometimes you worry when it comes to topics like this, paranormal and spiritual. It can get overwhelming. However, I was proved wrong by first correspondence, as Renée was a pleasure to speak with. I asked her what gives people the sense that these chambers are Celtic relics. She responded, quote, "The chambers hold a sense of mystery. They are timeless enigmas that baffle even the most hardened skeptics. Some are certainly root cellars, given that they have names and dates associated with their construction. However, many others are not so easily explained away. Many align with the winter solstice sunrise. Our chambers here greatly resemble 4,000-year-old structures in England, Ireland, Scotland, and even France," unquote. She's absolutely right, by the way. These chambers are in fact very similar to chambers found all over the world. You can find the same structures lining Europe, which begs the question as to whether or not these are just some old colonial fridges. She then went on to say, quote, "I think that to ignore the paranormal aspect is to turn a blind eye on half of what these stone chambers are about. They're a good mystery, and in many cases, they have brought people together. The fact is that they do have the paranormal lore, and that's a large part of their reputation. It becomes ingrained in the Hudson Valley's rich history and legends. The fact that they're mysterious is the very reason why they should be protected. The fact is, we may never know for sure, and the truth likely lies somewhere in between. That makes them no less worthy of preservation, because Celtic temple or root cellar, they became a part of our history," unquote. So, are they root cellars or 1,000-year-old relics? Well, what matters is this. They are obviously a part of our local history, and they need to be preserved. Whether they stored fruit or not is absolutely beside the point, because there's nothing more depressing than a beautiful example of man's work being torn down for a plaza. Many of these chambers are now caving in, being mowed over for construction, or simply lost to decay. If we preserve them and research what's there, maybe we can find out so much more about an area already so rich and dense in history. Maybe they're a key to a history long since buried, or maybe they're just another example of basic farm life. It doesn't matter, because at this point, they're only full of legend and lore. If we want the answers, we have to dig deeper. I want to thank Renée for taking the time to answer my questions. What she and KEPRI are doing is great work to help preserve these beautiful historic landmarks. If you want to read the complete interview, which has much more specific information as to Renée's experiences with the chambers and the work that she does, then please check out my website at hudsonvalleylegends.com and read the full interview. Also, I want to let you know that August 20th and 21st, Renée will be at the Daniel Ninham Intertribal Powwow. It's at Veterans Memorial Park on Gypsy Trail Road in Kent. If you want to find out more about the chambers, she'll have a booth set up, and she would love to speak to you about it. I also suggest you check out kent.cac.info and pull up the hiking map. It will show you the point where you can visit Mead Farm and see the beautiful chamber I visited. It's not a hard journey. Your body will thank you for the fresh air, and you'll get to see some really beautiful history. I took some pictures of the inside of the chamber too. I'll have them posted on Instagram and Facebook for you to see. For those not in the know, I'm at Hudson Valley Legends. And if you really find yourself fascinated with them and you want to help preserve, please consider speaking with the Putnam County Historical Society and see what you can do to become a part of saving local history. Hudson Valley Legends was written and narrated by Toni Odell. Produced and scored by Michael MacDermant. If you have any questions, comments, or just want to say hi, please email me at hvlegends@gmail.com. If we discuss a topic, I will gladly give you credit for the inspiration. Please be sure to like, subscribe, comment, anything at all. Every review helps us become a little bigger and better. Also, if you're a hardcore fan, I kindly ask you to check out our Patreon page and consider donating. We also have a donate button on the website in case you don't want to do a per month or per episode donation. Thank you for your continued support and listening to Hudson Valley Legends.